Across America, more adults are entering retirement on their own. They're called solo agers, people growing older without the traditional safety net of a spouse, a partner, or nearby family. For some, it's a lifelong path. For others, it's the result of life changes, a divorce, the loss of a loved one, or adult children moving far away. A new survey of Americans aged 50 and older sheds light on how solo agers are preparing, financially, emotionally, and socially, for the years ahead. It explores their use of technology, their physical and cognitive health, and how they're building support networks in a changing world. With these insights, the Society of Actuaries Research Institute hopes to deepen our understanding of the challenges solo agers face and to help more Americans age with confidence and connection and financial security. And joining me to discuss this is Stephen Siegel from the Society of Actuaries Research Institute and Cindy Hounsel from Wiser. Steve, welcome. I'd be eager to have you sort of go through the key findings of the survey, so to sort of set the table for us.
Well, it's great to be here, Bob. Thanks for having us to talk about, I think, this very important work. And we're very fortunate to partner with Wiser. The SOA always enjoys partnering with Wiser on these. We want to help people at different stages of their life and also people who have different challenges. So solo agers was really a natural thing for us to explore. Cindy's going to talk about the guides, but we did a survey to give us some insight into how the guides can help people. And so some of the findings, very interesting and really, I think, complement the guides. So we asked them solo agers. This was a survey. We had about 250 solo agers that responded to the survey that we sent out. And support networks is a very important part of solo aging. And as we expected, many of these solo agers often feel a lack of companionship. And only a small percentage are very confident that their current support network is going to help them as they age. So clearly, support networks are very important. And so in terms of these support networks, a lot of solo agers are really putting a priority on nurturing them, what they have now, and then also growing them. And so the guide we have a guide dedicated to this, to give some strategies and help people think through the different ways. And what we saw in the survey is that a lot of the way that solo agers do this nurturing and extending the support networks, they reach out to neighbors, coworkers, friends. This one we found interesting too, a significant percentage connect on social media. So a lot of these people, and there's another finding that a lot of these people are embracing technology, which is also a very interesting finding. And then even things like getting a pet, we see that they're doing it, and that's great. I think we think that's a great thing. Sort of whatever you think you could do to help you with your support network is just a great thing. And again, the guide lists a lot of different ways to do this, and really helps people think through all the different ways that they could expand and nurture their support network. Another thing we saw is that there really is a very significant percentage, a majority, who are concerned about what might happen to their physical and cognitive abilities as they age. And again, this could be kind of scary if you're a solo ager. And again, a solo ager is someone who really doesn't have the traditional support as they age. And that could manifest itself in a lot of different ways we might even not think about. So one way I found interesting is somebody could be married, but we would consider them a solo ager if their spouse is incapacitated in some way, maybe a disability and so forth. That person feels like a solo ager. They don't have the support that they might have had. It's just a very important topic that we're talking about here. And so, in terms of that, getting back to the physical and cognitive changes, a lot of these people are very concerned about that, and they are taking steps and trying to prepare themselves for that. Some of the things they're doing are setting up memory aids. It's a lot of the cognitive issue. And so, again, these are things that you could be proactive on, and the guides are there to kind of help you think about ways you can be proactive. Again, really the value of the guides. So there's also a range of the types of assistance people need as they're aging. These people, given the survey and finding people who are able to take a survey, we had solo agers, they were around 67 years old average. So a lot of these people are still able to do things like cooking, shopping, managing their finances. But a lot of them getting into this age category, they're getting help with things like lawn care, automotive maintenance, that things that are much more physical. They need help with now, and they're thinking about how they're going to need help going forward. So, and then finally, something else I would highlight here, and gets back to what we talked about earlier, they're embracing technology. A lot of these people are using cell phones, they're texting, they're on social media. Almost 3/4 are on social media. But one thing here, when you're embracing technology, you also have to really apply care. And it's very, very important that you are careful with how you use this, avoid fraud, and so forth. So that's, again, a guide. The guide, one of the benefits is we talk about that, and we talk about ways to do things like securing your passwords, which is very important, especially if you're really relying on technology, for example, for doing your finances. So, but really, that's, I think, some of the really highlights that we found in the survey.
Yeah. Sydney, I want to turn our attention to the guides that Stephen was mentioning. There's a number of them: managing your finances, selecting a healthcare proxy, preparing for changing housing needs, getting your legal documents in order, developing a support network, using technology aids. Tell us more about what folks will learn in these guides. Steve gave us a sort of a hint of what's there, but maybe do a deeper dive for us.
I mean, I think a lot of times people are really looking for ways to find the answer so that they can make a decision. And, it's too hard, or, there's just too much information and it doesn't hone in on what people are really looking for. So I think that was one of the great successes of having a number of these booklets where you can just go to it and see what the documents that they tell you have to have, why you need them, and how you can make decisions around what the booklet is actually pointing you toward. So I think, for women especially who've been, a solo partner, or ended up becoming solo after having a partner for a long time and maybe relying on somebody else to do all of that, it's been really helpful for people to have the information about, what it's like to go it alone. And, women end up, because of, the whole lifetime of not having such a financially secure time of it, they don't have a lot of the, especially the generation that's, up in the 80s at this point. They didn't have those opportunities that the, women have today, where they can really get good help and trustworthy. I see all the time that there's CFP commercials now, like on the TV, and for a lot of people that don't know what that means, it's, it has a big impact. So, how did we get in this situation is what we hear from women a lot of times. Or what do we do? They want to make their house an aging in place space, but have no idea how to do that. And so the booklets actually point them in the direction they want to go in.
Yeah. One of the booklets talks about selecting a healthcare proxy and caregivers in cases where an aging couple has children. Oftentimes a daughter or a son might become the unpaid caregiver for someone who might be experiencing issues with activities of daily living or cognitive decline. In the case of solo agers, that resource isn't there. They have to go outside to maybe professional help. Is that fair to say?
Yep, definitely. I mean, I just got through being a trustee for friends that didn't have children, and they're the people that are inheriting that the money that's there. It's an apartment in New York City, so you can imagine it does have some value. And they have no idea what they're doing, but feel free to put it all in the stock market, the week that the stock market is being, categorized as overvalued and, and looking for balance and all that. So I think when there's more than one sibling, it helps to have stuff in print saying this is the way it should go. And, this is how you should find the experts help that you're going to need, and not just wing it, especially when you're dealing with the the folks that you're representing are in their 90s. The woman I'm helping, I mean, I remember meeting her mother when she was 101. And so, she's 95 at this point. So that money still has to last her for a number of years. 6-7 years is pretty expensive. these days. Anyway, so it's all,
Yeah.
I think it just sort of categorizes many of the decisions that need to be made and why they need to be made, and,
Yeah.
puts you on the right track. I mean, when people say, I
Yeah.
want to age in place, what does that even mean? You know what I mean? Like, you want a handle in your shower, or, what is it you're looking for? And so, a lot of times it just needs, people to sort of focus in, know what they're going to have to do to have that dream that they have of aging in place. So,
Yeah. One of the guides talks about legal documents, and obviously there's a lot of legal documents that solo agers might need, that in addition to a will or durable power of attorney
yeah,
for financial matters and health matters, they might also need advanced directives and living wills and et cetera. And it can be overwhelming if you're going at this
sure.
alone. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the other and then I mentioned healthcare proxy a second ago. It also strikes me that if you're a solo ager, one of the challenges is if you're one of a couple and have children, it might be easy enough to name one of your children as the healthcare proxy. But if you're a solo ager, you might have to find someone that you trust who will make decisions for you when you're incapacitated. Is that a difficult? Does the guide address that?
Yeah, it's difficult to find, but one thing I know from taking my colleague to the hospital is that they ask about all of that right now. The first question they ask, do you have a directive? Do you have it with you? Like blah blah. When was the date that you last did it? So they're pushing you in the right direction. And it's part of the forms that get filled out when you show up to say where you live, and all of your other important documents that you're probably going to need. But that's the first one they ask for, which isn't that comforting when you think you're just going in for a very minor procedure and they're asking you to to where is it? Anyway, I'm joking. Anyway,
Of course,
but
yeah. So I'm also curious.
I was just going to say, at every stage of life, there's stuff that you have to be doing,
Yeah. So I'm curious. We know that many solo agers might face isolation, loneliness, and might go online for social needs, to have their social needs met. And in some cases, given the prevalence of scams and schemes online, I take it that the guide at least helps people understand to be careful when they're out there in the world of social media.
Yeah. Yeah, we just finished doing a scam, not just a webinar, but we had an all-day symposium on, and it's what everybody talks about in the circles that I run in, because it's happening to so many people. So I think that's one of the most important things of all at the moment. So,
well, I know we've covered a lot of ground. Anything we missed or just bears reemphasizing from Stephen or Cindy?
No, other than, I think for a solo ager, the guides really give you a lot to chew on. And you can read one topic that you might be particularly interested, or you can read them all. You'll learn something. And then also, even if you're not a solo ager, I think you can. So lots to think about.
Well, Cindy, Stephen, I want to thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom with us. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you.